Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales is the fifth and final film of Disney's long-running, very long-running, Pirates of the Caribbean films. Once again, we have Captain Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp, on a quest to once again find treasure, and once again, there's a curse that needs to be lifted. Have you noticed by now that there seems to be kind of a running thing with these movies? Yeah. Which isn't to say I didn't like this movie. I did find it very enjoyable, but it just kept thinking, I've seen all this before. But let's go all the way to the beginning. In the beginning, we see a young boy whose father is under a terrible curse and believes that the only way to end the curse is with some kind of treasure, of course, and the only way to find that treasure is to enlist the help of Jack Sparrow. Jump ahead several years later, the young boy is now a young man, still trying to find the treasure, still trying to save his father, and he's found Jack Sparrow. And along the way, they come across a young woman who is a scientist, but since women aren't allowed to be educated in this time period, everyone thinks she's a witch. A joke that was never really funny to begin with, and unfortunately they do go along with for a while. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't necessary. Though what was funny is when she talks about the types of sciences she knows, such as astronomy and horology, and everyone misinterprets that because, of course, the pirates don't know what that is. I'll let you fill in the gaps for yourself. But I didn't really have too big expectations going into this movie. Really, going in, I just thought to myself, I want swashbuckling adventure, I want some great music, I want some one-liners. That's it. That's the kind of movie I wanted, and basically, that's what I got. Though the humor wasn't as good as some of the previous ones, I found myself chuckling a lot, but very few times did I actually laugh out loud, which was a little disappointing, but it wasn't bad. It was still quite a bit of fun, and it felt like a real adventure again. Now, we have a lot of familiar faces coming back, obviously. Some were meant to be a surprise, unless you actually watched the trailer or read anything about this movie going in. But there were still a couple that were maybe a little surprising. Like, there was a lot of speculation about who the young man is who joins them on the adventure, and of course, we all know going in who he was going to be. So it wasn't that much of a surprise, but it was kind of an interesting twist, even though, once again, it felt like it was retreading a lot of the same territory. I forgot to mention, when I was talking about curses that need to be broken, I'm not just talking about the boy's father, but I'm also talking about a group of cursed ghost sailors who were killed by Jack Sparrow when he was a young man. It was actually a very interesting sequence, in a way, seeing the origin of Jack Sparrow, how he became captain. But they didn't really die, they just became ghosts. I kept waiting for them to explain that, but they never really did. It was just a curse. But basically, what I thought about this movie is that it was fun. It wasn't as dark as some of the other ones, but it still wasn't as good as the very first movie. The first one was just the perfect blend of color, fun, excitement, darkness, some creepy imagery, but it just all tied together so well. It was like lightning in a bottle. You can only get it once. And while I wouldn't say the rest of the Pirates movies have been bad, they kind of have been on a decline. I don't even remember if Stranger Tides was bad. I don't really remember anything about that movie. So, Dead Men Tell No Tales was a step in the right direction. And you know what? If this is really the end, I'm fine with it. But judging from the end credit scene, you know what? I'll talk about spoilers in a bit and we'll go into that. But really, if you just want a swashbuckling pirate movie like I did, this will be fine. It'll satisfy you. It's probably not going to be the biggest movie of the year. Right now, that still goes to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but hey, the year's still young. We'll see what we got in store. I'm sure it's still going to make a lot of money, and you know what? It deserves it. It was a fine-made film. A lot of effort was put into it. Just wish it was more like the first one. And I mean by how amazing it was, not how much it borrowed. It kind of reminds me like with The Force Awakens, when a lot of people criticized the repeats in that movie and the callbacks to the other one, to the old Star Wars movies, because this movie did actually have a few callbacks to the very first Pirates movie, but for some reason it bothered me a little bit more here than it did with Star Wars. The only way I can think of is since The Force Awakens was in a way supposed to be a reboot for the Star Wars film franchise, it made sense that they played it a little safe, gave us what we wanted. There's been like a lot of debate right now whether or not The Force Awakens or Rogue One is the better new Star Wars movie. But honestly, even though Rogue One was more familiar, if Rogue One was supposed to be the big reintroduction to Star Wars, people would have gotten upset about how different it was. But with Pirates, this isn't the reboot, this is the continuation, so I want more new. But then, considering like how nostalgic we all are for the first one, I didn't mind that much, the little references and little tidbits that they throw into the first one, and they were few and far between. It didn't bother me that much. But now it's about a good time to go into the spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about spoilers, you can stop listening right now. We good? Okay. Here's my biggest problem with this movie. Death has no meaning. One of my dogs is walking in. Hi, Dewey. Death has no meaning in these movies. What I mean by that is Barbossa dies in the first movie, comes back at the end of the second, and guess what? He dies at the end of this one. Alright, Dewey, you're making noise, puppy. Yeah, okay, you're gonna stick around. Okay. He dies at the end of this one, and it's supposed to be such a sad thing. And I'm like, he's died and came back before. If they make a sixth movie, he's coming back. Speaking of which, let's talk about what... Okay, Dewey, now you're bumping my camera. Go on, buddy. Go. Go. Speaking of which, let's talk about that little end credit scene, shall we? We see Will and Elizabeth. They're back together. Will's curse is broken. And who should come waltzing through that door of theirs? None other than Davy Jones. Yup. They don't really show him, they just catch a glimpse of him, but it's obvious who it's supposed to be, and after such a big deal they made about him dying in the third movie, they just go, nope, he's back. What the heck? Even like the main villain, Salazar, the sailor, who died and just became a ghost, the curse is lifted on him, he becomes a real boy again, he comes back to life, and in the end, Barbossa sacrificed himself to kill Salazar. And I'm like, what were the stakes? Both of these guys have died and come back again. So, just... the movie makes it... it was like they were trying to make me feel something after establishing that there's no consequences in this world. You know, I've learned by now you're not supposed to think too hard about these movies. I don't think they think too hard about it. They tried to make... World's End big and epic, and instead they made it second most forgettable outside of Stranger Tides. Seriously, what was up with World's End? There was like no color in that movie. But I've rambled on about it enough. Oh! I almost forgot. You know, it's all about Will Turner and Elizabeth's son, trying to find Jack Sparrow, all that stuff, and I didn't think Keira Knightley was returning to this franchise at all until they spoiled it in the trailer. And that's literally like the last minute of the movie you see her, and they didn't even give her any lines. She just runs up, hugs Orlando Bloom, happy ending for everyone. Their son has his girlfriend, and they're all together, one big happy family now. And Jack Sparrow's just off to the side like, oh, how revolting. The one thing that I thought was more interesting about Will Turner's son than Will Turner was that his son keeps talking about the myths and legends that exist in the sea and how he believes in all of them, and it makes sense because at the beginning he asks Will about the adventures that him and Jack Sparrow went on, implying that now it's about 20-year gap in between these movies now, something like that, or at least between this one and the third one. So it implies that the adventures of the old movies have almost become like myths and legends. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist, but really there really wasn't much more to the son than that. Though I was a little bit confused by the girl because she's out to find the Trident of Poseidon. It was something about her father, that he left the clues for her, which I found a little confusing because she makes it clear that since she's a woman of science, she doesn't believe in anything supernatural. So, why is she on this quest to find the Trident of Poseidon if she doesn't believe in it? I'm sure they explained that, but it seemed weird. So, once again, it was basically, like calling back to the first one, a scene where we can have somebody say, oh, I don't believe in ghost stories, only to all of a sudden go, oh, ghosts are real. And of course, she ends up being the daughter of Barbossa. That scene literally comes out of nowhere, and I guess it wasn't a bad twist, but you don't see it coming because there's nothing leading into it. It's just one scene. She has a little conversation with Barbossa, and it like dawns on him, you're my daughter. It did kind of leave it open for interpretation. Like she takes, at the very end of the movie, she takes his last name. She's like, oh, my name isn't Smith, it's Barbossa. And I'm like, oh, does she become a pirate now, or what? A little confusing, a little open-ended, but didn't really mind it that much. But after going on and on and on about this movie and the whole series and even Star Wars, I don't really care. Like, I don't mind them. Even the bad ones don't bother me that much. They're just swashbuckling pirate movies, and if that's what you want, this one's fine. Just a couple things that I know is little nitpicks I had, but you know what? If they go ahead and make a sixth one, I'll probably watch it. I don't mind. So, after hearing me ramble on for it, just go see it for yourself and get your own opinion. Because love it or hate it, it's a pirate's life for me. Oh, and if you did notice, I had to like step out to like my dogs were barking or something, and took off my eye patch, and now I can't find it. It's just gone. So yeah, that's why I stopped wearing my eye patch a minute ago. I still don't know where it is. So yeah, just go see this movie. It's fine. It's fun. Just watch it.